Also on the program, we shall be taking you down to Nyeri County at Naromoru Hotel, where we have Ibrahim Karanja also standing by to give us the latest in terms of tourism, as well as what are some of the key issues that hoteliers have to raise when it comes to addressing this national issue of the dwindling numbers of elephants that have been lost due to poaching. We shall be counting the cost on what this means for Kenya's tourism sector, which accounted for 157 billion shillings as of 2018. Also on the program today, we shall be discussing matters to do with e-commerce and what are the trends when it comes to electronic commerce. I'll be speaking to Paul Ochieng, who is a senior lecturer at Strathmore University. He's already with us here in studio, and we shall be having some candid discussions about the do's and don'ts and what is the future of e-commerce for Kenya. You don't want to miss all that coming up in a short while. But let's start you off with a look at the money markets, how the Kenya shilling is performing today in trading against other world currencies. As of this hour, the Kenya shilling as of yesterday was trading at about 100 shillings and 19 cents. Today it's trading at 109 cents. The sterling pound is trading at 128.06 buying, selling at 128.36. The euro is trading at 112.45 buying, selling at 112.71. Well, the NSE performance now, that's how the numbers are looking like. Of course, very interesting moves there when it comes to the turnover, as well as the NSE 20 share index, which has retained its position at about 3,045 points. Well, let's move on to the next slide where we can quickly take a look at the most active counters. Well, we have Kenya Power dominating the stocks today. It's moved about 2.78 million worth of shares. Safaricom moving 1.61 million shares. Kenya Commercial Bank moving 1.32 million shares. East Africa Breweries moving 1.13 million shares. Finally, let's look at the winning counters this afternoon. Quite very interesting moves there, as you can see. And finally, let's close off with the losing stocks. You can see there, East Africa Cables is among the stocks that did not perform so well in trading this afternoon. Well, do you think Kenya Airways taking over Jomo Kenyatta International Airport is a good move? That is our Twitter poll question this afternoon. You can engage with us on our social media handles just to share with us your views on this particular question. We bring this question up because we have a very interesting story coming up in relation to this. And of course, keep tweeting, keep engaging with us on our social media handles. Let's take you now to that top story now. Well, the National Assembly's Public Investments Committee has invited the chairman of the Kenya Airports Authority and its board of management to shed more light on Kenya Airways' bid to take over management of Jomo Kenyatta International Airport from the authority. KAA Chief Executive Officer Johnny Anderson told Parliament that the authority was studying the proposal by KQ to take over operations at the airport. Well, Nandi Hills Member of Parliament Alfred Keter wants KAA Chairman Isaac Kawondo, who also doubles up as the CEO and MD of NIC and CBA banks that loaned the airline about 5 billion shillings, to explain the conflict of interest in KQ's takeover of JKIA, which members have described as suspect.
being a member of parliament, I know of a situation where they have been able to be given, was it 4 billion shillings when things were really, really down and under? And this committee has now taken center stage to actually know when we are giving out that money, what is happening? Are we liquidating the shares that belong to KLM? How are we earning out of this whole thing?
I cannot, of course, speculate because I don't know all of the reasons behind, a proposal being, but we know that Kenya has been losing market share in East Africa and in Africa when it comes to the aviation sector. Just to mention very briefly, in 2011, 50% of all air traffic in East Africa came out of Jomo, JKIA.
Exactly.
In 2017, it's down to 34%.
These airlines are your customers, and you must, to an extent, know at least their performance. And it's in common knowledge that KQ has been making losses. And in banking, there's something called KYC, know your customer. Likewise to you, you must know the airline in terms of profitability. You've just indicated that the market share of Kenya Airways was going down. We want to see that document.
Well, we shall be getting some feedback on this from the Cabinet Secretary in charge of Transport, that is James Macharia, to just also give us some clarity on this topic. Well, let's move on to some more stories now. A survey done by global audit firm KPMG shows that 76% of the workers from East Africa agree that the human resource function has undergone a digital transformation through the use of online recruitment, candidate shortlisting, and integration of employee measures of productivity with the payroll. Well, this digital transformation closes the gap between what digital customers already have and what analog businesses can deliver. According to the survey, HR executives in East Africa ranked high in performance management, learning and reskilling, and staff retention as the main areas that most organizations practice. As per the survey, 92% of HR executives recognize the need for transformation, but only 56% are confident about its ability to support their enterprises, while 50% of global respondents and 40% of East Africa respondents believe HR functions are not prepared for artificial intelligence. Indeed, some interesting numbers there. Well, Kenya has moved about 80,000 barrels of oil from Turkana to Mombasa since the early oil pilot scheme was commissioned on the 3rd of June 2018. Well, British oil explorer Tullow Oil now plans to move another 120,000 barrels by May this year, even as the government looks at shipping the commodity by June. Brenda Kirubo reports.
Since June 2018, around 500 trucks have transported crude oil from Gamia and Twiga oil blocks in Lokicha, Turkana County, to the Kenya Petroleum Refinery Limited facilities in Mombasa.
We've moved 80,000 barrels so far, and we're going to move before the first shipment another 120,000 barrels.
90 to 100 trucks will now be added to boost capacity to 2,000 barrels per day by May from the current 600 barrels.
All the oil that we have moved is oil that has been sitting in the tank for the last 2.5 years. We have not put in new oil in the tanks in the last 1 year. We are planning to do that once we hook up the early processing facility, which I have indicated we will do in the second half of next month.
At the same time, construction works for a 821-kilometer heated crude oil pipeline is set to start next year to transport the waxy commodity. It will be aligned to the LAPSET corridor and will allow flexibility in moving oil through future pumping stations. The crude pipeline from Lokicha to Lamu will cost $1 billion and will be funded by Kenya Pipeline, Total, Africa Oil and Danish oil and gas company Maersk Oil. Crude oil was discovered in the Lokicha Basin in 2012, but the government says it has not made any revenues from oil sales since tests and studies are still ongoing.
We sent out the asset to a few people a few companies who have refineries. Refineries are not many in the world, so it's not like we have a large pool of people who will refine the crude oil. That's the first thing. The second thing is that crude oil refineries are built for specific kinds of crudes. They are not generic. You cannot just take a crude somewhere and refine it. That's not generally how refineries work.
Even with the crude oil deposits, the government will still continue to import refined oil because the reserves are not enough to allow for construction of a refinery.
Early oil project is not a commercial venture. Let's start there. It's not about making money. It's about finding out exactly what are the requirements from a logistical point of view, from a social point of view of what we will need to produce full field. That's the first thing.
Overall, oil production in Turkana's Lokicha Basin is estimated to cost $3 billion. That is equity financing of 30% and 70% from debt. Locals, however, remain adamant about the oil prospecting, claiming they will need to be on the front line when it comes to jobs and equitable sharing of revenue once commercial production starts. Brenda Kirubu, KTN News.
Well, indeed, some good news there for the people of Turkana. Moving on, sorghum farming might be an economic booster in Busia County if farmers in the region embrace the crop. While speaking during an agricultural trade fair at Mundika Market in Busia County, experts from various organizations called on farmers to take advantage of the venture since the crop does well in the region and also to gain from the guaranteed market supply chain.
Especially those tax charities that you always have at and then another
Wakulima wengi wamekuwa wakilima mahindi, lakini kwa sasa mahindi bei imekuwa mbaya sana. The highest price ambayo serikali imetangaza ni 2500 huko ukiweza kupeleka kwa cereal board, lakini unapata wakulima wengi hawawezi kufika huko, inabidi wakauza na bei ya hasara. Lakini ukilima sorghum, the minimum price ambayo mkulima anaweza uza ni 2880. That is the minimum price ambayo mkulima anaweza uza, ambayo tunaita farm gate price.
To bring to the attention of many farmers the availability of the market of sorghum and soya in the county, and also to educate them on the importance of certified seeds and to improve their productivity and income.
Najaribu kuhamasisha wakulima wafanyie kazi yao pamoja ili technical staff akitaka kuwafikia inakuwa ni rahisi. Tumetarget kurecruit over 100 farmers every year. Mwaka huu tuko na grupu ya watu 70 ambao wana undergo training, ambao tunahamasisha hawa kupitia kwa wataalamu tofauti.
Well, some various aspects of sorghum farming, quite interesting, especially now that the planting season is just around the corner. You might consider venturing into sorghum farming. Well, speaking about sorghum, well, Kenya is at the cusp of becoming a very critical economy when it comes to the tourism sector. And of course, the tourism industry has been having a very good year compared to what we've seen for the last, say, 10 years. Right now, we are talking about the numbers looking up, is standing at about 157 billion shillings that was earned by the country when it comes to tourism. And of course, this covers domestic and foreign tourists. And we now want to take you to the heart of tourism, where KTN's business reporter, Brenda Kirubu, is at right now, the Nairobi National Park. Such a serene and welcoming flora and fauna there, Brenda. What is the current state of affairs when it comes to conservation of our wildlife?
Yeah.
Well, Brenda, if you can hear me, of course, tourism is a big area of focus for us today, even as the population of elephants has been dwindling, as well as the rhino. And you are at the Nairobi National Park as we speak right now. And What should we expect in terms of interventions towards ending poaching?
Good afternoon, Abby, from the Nairobi National Park here in the capital, Nairobi. Of course, and it's all about monkey business. As you can see, monkeys are now feeding some berries, some fruit, and at the extreme end, we have our lovely rhino, and it's called Dubai. Now, Dubai is a white rhino, and the reason why it's called a white rhino, according to the Dutch, is because on the front part of its nose, it's not pointed like the ones for the black rhino. This one in particular one is a bit blunt. And the rhinos, interesting facts about it is the fact that, rhinos are short-sighted, so they depend highly on their ears for sensing, depend on smelling so that they can identify their environment. This particular one is feeding on hay, and it's about 11 years old. It's been here in the park for 11 years. Now, something interesting to note, an animal that has been, in a national park compared to the one that is in the wild, has the tendency to live longer because, they have access to food, and in this case, softer grass compared to the wild where they can eat shrubs. So when their teeth, the lifespan of an animal, in this case the rhino, depends on just how much it can chew and the longevity of the teeth. So when they eat a lot in the wild, the dental formula of the rhino in this case tends to depreciate. So when it depreciates, it doesn't eat much, and after a couple of years, when the teeth are all gone, it starts to drink water and then it dies. But this particular one is very strong. As you can see, it's feeding on very soft grass. Dubai is and was adopted actually by someone from Dubai. That's why it's called like that. That person comes periodically to visit it to ensure that it has everything that it needs. As you can see, Abby, it has a bit of dust. It has put some dust a bit on its body, and that's to ensure that it cools off. Now, Abby, in this particular place, we do not have any elephants. This is because I'm told that elephants love to stay in groups, and when they are not together, they sort of feel lonely. But rhinos are very different. They tend to adapt pretty quick when they are alone. They tend to adapt to their environment, like, as we can see, Dubai has done. Now, to give us more details when it comes to illegal wildlife trade here, especially in Nairobi National Park, of course, they have statistics when it comes to the Kenya Wildlife Service. We are joined by Paul Gathitu. He is the Corporate Affairs Manager at KWS. Thank you so much for joining us. Perhaps you can start with what is making headlines today. Why exactly are you fencing around? What's the purpose for this?
Now, Nairobi National Park is actually fenced to the west and the northeast. And this is to prevent animals, and particularly the big cats, from going into people's farms. The southern end, which is bordered by Mpakasi River, and which eventually becomes Athi River, is open. And that is where the migration of the animals move locally. They used to migrate all the way to Amboseli, but now it's been restricted. And we've noticed that the area towards Rongai is an area that is very prone to a lot of human wildlife cases, particularly the cats. You will hear a lot of reports about hyenas having gone through. And therefore, any efforts to try and separate people are the ones that we use. So through the management program for the park, the senior warden is looking into ensuring that we do have some prevention. And one of the things is to extend the fence that is already existing in that area from the little village that we call Bangla, and extending towards a place that is called Ndiguna. And this is subject to a lot of interactions with the people, with the wildlife. And therefore, it's something that is in the management plan, and they will be working with it. It may have caused some alarm, people thinking that maybe we are fencing to stop wildlife from accessing water. Surely, how would KWS be the one that is actually stopping wildlife from accessing water? So there's a much more elaborate explanation, and this will be released in due course. In fact, we do have a planned meeting for tomorrow to just discuss exactly the modalities and how we'll go about it. Because naturally, we are asking questions as to if the river is the boundary of the park, then where would you fence? Because the boundary is literally in the middle of the river. Technically, that's not possible. Then the other side of the river is other people's farms. So there's quite a bit of discussions to run. So there should be no panic. It's not something that is
probably kill it because they're coming to their livestock, they're eating their livestock. How exactly do you deal with this?
Well, Brenda Kerubo there, just continuing with that interview. Of course, we are fixing the sound quality. But just to walk you through the numbers, well, the tourism sector is not just any other sector that you can assume it. Because, well, the sector, if you were to look at the numbers in detail, the sector generated about, actually grew by 37.33%. That was in 2018. If you compare this with 2017, the numbers have been growing pretty fast. Well, the earnings from the sector grew from actually hit 157,386,151,000 shillings, whereas the receipts have increased by 31.2%. If you compare this to 2017, the earnings from the industry stood at 119 billion shillings. Well, this is in history one of the highest earnings the country has ever generated, whereas the domestic tourism bed nights have also been increasing, and right now it's standing at about 3.9 million. That is the bed night capacity. To be precise, 3,974,243. Well, this compared to 2017 is a 9.73% increase. Well, that's why the tourism sector really matters for the country. We'll be getting back to Brenda in a short while. And Jacob, do we have Ibrahim ready from Nyeri? Well, I'm told Ibrahim is being set up. We should be having him shortly. And of course, we shall be revisiting this interesting topic in a short while. But let's take you to a story now where, actually not that story, but let's take you to our Twitter poll question this afternoon, where we're asking you, do you think Kenya Airways taking over Jomo Kenyatta International Airport is a good move? Well, keep tweeting, keep engaging with us, and we shall be able to sample your views at the tail end of this broadcast. For now, we're going to proceed on a quick commercial break. We still have much more coming up.